Moderation is a bit tricky because it still kind of falls into the diet world. So let me explain. Most people will tell you everything's okay in moderation. But what's moderate to you and what's moderate to me are going to be totally different things. As a for instance, when I was in naturopathic college, I was speaking to a friend of mine and we were talking about drinking alcohol. And we were talking about what moderation is. And she started talking about how appalled she was when she came home from school and her husband had sat there and drank with her brother and they had each had 3 beers. Okay, so in my world, growing up, and through university and that to me was complete moderation. Only 3 beers. In my world, only 3 beers. In her world, it was, he had 3 beers. So is 3 beers moderate or not? Well, it depends. So as a word, it's frustrating because it's so dependent. And if I say, well, let your kids eat some in moderation, or you say to yourself, I'm gonna bring in some more sweets into my world, but moderately. What that means is that you still have a line in the sand that when you cross it, you've been bad or wrong or indulgent, or there's always a negative connotation to the word or to the experience of crossing that line. And that's what makes saying even to yourself, I'm going to do it moderately, a bit tricky. We talk a lot in intuitive eating about having unconditional permission to eat. Now, this is one that is grossly over-exaggerated and misinterpreted and taken by its own self. It does sound like a complete disregard for nutrition and health. Meaning that if I'm going to sit down and eat cookies, I'm going to eat as many of them as I want. I'm not going to stop at a moderate. What's moderate? Is it 1? Is it 5? In my binge days, a row is pretty good. But now a row, that feels a little too much for me. Where's moderate? I don't know. You don't know. And that's my point. So if we have unconditional permission to eat, it means that I can sit down and enjoy that food whenever I would like to, within the principles of intuitive eating. And that's the piece that's so important. It's within the bigger picture. So I'm honoring my hunger, meaning I'm not sitting down to cookies when I'm at a hungry, starving, ravenous state. And if I am, I'm going to understand why I'm going to eat more of them. But preferably, I'm going to show up at a just kind of, I'm a little peckish. Maybe it's at the end of a meal. I'm also going to be honoring my fullness, which means that even if my mind is saying I want to eat more cookies, if my body is saying no thank you, I'm going to be respectful of that. Does it mean I'm not allowed to have cookies? No, I have full permission to eat the cookies within my biological requirements. So having a couple cookies at the end of the meal would be a wonderful addition to a meal. It just tops it off with that beautiful pleasure. But if I have moderate on there, then it means what? I can do that twice a week, but 3 times means that I'm overindulging. What does that mean, moderate? Moderation, unfortunately, is very diet mentality rooted. So it's a word that I don't encourage use of. And I know that sounds odd, but I don't know anybody who naturally just there's no consensus on that. It's like when we talk about risk factors. Well, you're at low risk, medium risk, high risk. Give me a number to work with. I don't know. If I hear a doctor tell me I'm at high risk of having a heart attack, I think I'm going to drop dead tomorrow. They mean you have a 15% chance. Well, that also means that you have an 85% chance of not having a heart attack. That to me is a high chance of not having a heart attack. These kinds of words don't have a definition by nature, and so they make learning this new language very difficult. So I encourage you to find a different way. And if you're not ready to have unconditional permission to eat cookies, don't start eating the cookies yet. This is another misinterpretation of all of what I teach. just because you become aware of all the rules doesn't mean that you should start pushing back on them just yet. Because if you are still not honoring your hunger and your fullness, if you're still not taking care of your emotional needs, your spiritual needs, your relationship needs, all of the other pieces in your life, if you're not sleeping enough, if you're not, I don't know, if you're stressed to the max and losing your mind with just getting through the day, that's not going to be a safe and wonderful and enjoyable way to start playing with foods that are currently very scary. So, point of today, let's find a new word for moderation. And if you find yourself saying, I'm eating intuitively with moderation, I would challenge that a little bit and look at what moderation means to you, because what it's going to unveil to you is a new rule that you have, a new belief that you have, not new, but new to you, because those voices are just so ever present and ingrained, we just don't even realize they're there. So what does moderation mean to you? And understand that when you say moderation, you are inadvertently putting limits on something. And the moment you put it in a limited value, it increases the emotional value of that food. It increases the emotional value of that experience. You know, people in Paris, they see the Eiffel Tower all the time. It's nothing to them. A tourist who's never seen it before, it's a big deal and a must see, and they'll do anything to get there. It's the same with food. And if you've put the moderation bit around it, there's still an emotional attachment there. And that means it still has power over you. If you enjoyed today's video, then I think you're gonna love Applaud Your Bod. This is our closed Facebook group, and it is full of women who are on the same path as you. They are learning to love their bodies, they're making peace with food, and they are bringing their best selves forward, their healthiest selves, on their own terms. So if that sounds like a sisterhood that you'd like to be part of, click the link in the description. Come join us.